Hello everybody, welcome to a Teacherhead kitchen production where I'm going to be using a series of short videos to explore some of the ideas that I've written about in my blog teacherhead.com. And this first one, I'm going to be talking about the blog about 5 forms of feedback that I give to teachers most often when I've been able to observe somebody teach and then get involved with a discussion with them afterwards about their professional journey. The first thing, and sometimes it's the most important thing that a teacher feels they need to work on, and I'm discussing with them, is around their capacity for confident, assertive behaviour management. Because really you can't get involved with teaching, the pedagogy, the curriculum until you can really manage a classroom and you feel completely confident with the group that you have. The thing I find has been the most useful for me for my own teaching, but also in talking to other teachers, as the idea that comes from Bill Rogers that when you're teaching, you establish what you establish. Now, at its negative connotation, that means that if you let things go early on and you don't deal with that, you establish the fact that that's how things are. So, for example, if you try to soldier on when children are talking, and they're whispering under you and they carry on chatting and you just try to continue as if that's not happening, what you've established is that it's okay to chat during a lesson. And students will just assume that that's okay because you're not dealing with it. If somebody is late and nothing really happens, or if their presentation in their book is really all over the place and no one ever mentions it and you just week in, week out, that's kind of just how things are, you've established that that is more or less what you expect. Even if ideally you'd rather they were doing something different, unless you directly address it, you establish the fact that de facto you accept it. So how do we change that round? What we want to do is to establish expectations that are high, behaviours that we want. And it's much harder to do after you've established the opposite. So obviously the most important thing to do is to try to get these things right at the beginning. And so it's quite important to consider an establishment phase in a class at the beginning when you first meet them. But actually, you can always decide that you're going to make a break and re-establish expectations with the class anytime you like. You can always just say to yourself and to them, do you know what, everybody, we're just going to regroup and we're going to re-establish our expectations. So you can always engineer an establishment phase whenever you want. So what do you do then? What you have to do to begin with is be clear about what you want them to do. So you have to have a good sense of expectations. And these might be school-wide, there might be non-negotiables, there might be just your own expectations. But whatever they are, you need to rehearse them with the class, run through them, make sure that you know and they know exactly what's expected. And that needs to apply to every aspect of how you run a class. So you need to think about how you want your students to arrive, what they do when they come in the door, how they get out their equipment, the way they should behave when you ask questions, the principle, for example, that you're going to give a signal for attention, 3, 2, 1, and everyone listening. And that's what you're always going to do. So you don't establish the fact that you wait until I'm really shouting my head off before you start talking. No, you're going to establish that we have a signal which you understand. 3, 2, 1, and listening. Thank you. And then you're making sure that every single student knows that you mean them when you're saying these things. So you're looking to the corners of the class, the back, the people by the window, people at the front, everybody. And then you say something and you reinforce it when you get it. So when you have the behaviour that you want, you're clear. Thank you guys, that's brilliant. Thanks for doing that, well done. And you just in a very sort of low-key way, but with a clear way, you reinforce the behaviour that you want, you continue to reinforce that. Sometimes you need to practice. You need to take the class back outside and bring them in again. Sometimes you need to practice some routines, like how do we move from sitting at the bench, sitting at the tables and coming up to the front? Because if that's not done in a way you want, you've got to practice it until students get it right. How do you move from the teacher instruction phase into the group practical phase in a drama space, for example, or any multiple variations of that. So anything that you want students to do, you need to be clear about what your expectations are, rehearse the routines, and then be absolutely assertive in insisting that they do what you've asked. Sometimes the secret, the real secret, is the use of a pause and eye contact. So you wait, you look to the students, you use their names, and you say, "Thank you, well done John, well done Sue, brilliant." And you're with them, and they know you mean them, and they know that you're not going to let it go. So that's how you establish what you establish, and you establish the things that you want. Sometimes assertiveness is about voice control, about projecting a strong positive voice. It's not too shouty, because sometimes this is not very helpful. If you're always up in this register, sometimes it's helpful to come down and just be normal voiced with students. Sometimes it's about physical presence, like not just being pinned to the wall and looking slightly nervous at the class. It's about being in amongst, relaxed, making eye contact, talking to people. Again, using names is a useful way of communicating to the student that you know them, that you want to engage with them as people. It's important to practice this yourself. So with any class, especially if you've got a class where you feel that feels like a long way off, I would say, well, first of all, identify a moment where you're going to re-establish your principles and explain that to the class. We're going to do this again, guys. We're going to re-establish the basics. Set out the expectations, make sure that it's clear, and literally practice them. And in conjunction with, back up for, if things aren't going as you'd like, and students are, deliberately acting against you. If that ever happens, you need to deal with that. And we can talk about that in another video probably. But most of the time, for most purposes, if you're clear, if you're consistent with your own expectations, the students will understand that and they'll follow. So that's the key to it. Try to be as consistent with your own expectations as you can. Don't rush it. Be clear about what you want them to do. Communicate what you want them to do. And be absolutely insistent that you mean everybody all of the time. And you'll find that behaviour management becomes a lot more straightforward if you stick to those simple guidelines.